Madam President, appreciate the Senator from Rockingham's elucidation on our duties as counsel, and I largely agree that we often don't get to pick our clients, and the system imposes certain obligations on lawyers. However, I'd submit that the Attorney General does have discretion on how to do his job, and he can decide who to represent, who not to represent, what case to bring, what not to bring, and he can also settle cases if he thinks that the appeal that's brought, that he's trying to defend, has merit. I have another example of a crime victim who I'm very familiar with that the Attorney General basically didn't care about. He seems to pick and choose which crime victims he does care about, which I think is the point that the Senator from Northern Fairfax just raised. Back on November 17th, 2017, I was coming home from work, driving up to my house, and I noticed there was a bunch of police lights at the end of the street that I'm on right before I pull into my home. I thought there'd been a car accident. Next morning, I discovered that a young man had been shot by the police right at the end of the street. His name was Bijan Geisar. Bijan Geisar was I think he was a 25-year-old accountant, and he was driving through northern Alexandria when he was rear-ended by another car. So he was a victim. He was a victim of a crime. And instead of stopping for the accident in which he was struck, he kept going. I don't know why, but for some reason the United States Park Police decided they needed to go chase him down. So when two United States Park Police appeared hotly tailing this 25-year-old accountant, he panicked and he kept driving. Unfortunately, the Fairfax County Police picked up the chase as well, because the U.S. Park Police doesn't have body cam or dash cam, but the Fairfax County Police does. And as they followed him, he stopped once or twice, in which the police pulled their guns on him and started banging on his windows, which freaked him out even more, and he kept going. Eventually, he drove right by my house, stopped at the end of the street where the Fairfax County Police had barricaded the street. The Park Police got out of their cars, guns drawn, and when he tried to drive around the police car very slowly, it's on the video, you can go watch it, he's going maybe a mile an hour, the United States Park Police decided to unload 8 bullets into his car, shot him 4 times in the head. And it's all on video. I'm not embellishing this. At the time it happened, November of 2017, the United States Department of Justice, who had jurisdiction over the Park Police, was controlled by Donald Trump, who had previously made a statement that no police officer was ever going to be charged with anything while he was president. So guess what? The Department of Justice decided they weren't going to do anything, and they went silent. Notwithstanding that, Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney Ray Morrow thought it was wrong for this to happen, and so he indicted the 2 U.S. Park Police officers who had done this killing. It was later taken over by Steve Descano after Ray Morrow lost his primary. But the case ended up getting appealed up to the Virginia Court of Appeals. And because it was on appeal, it became the problem of Attorney General Jason Miyares. Attorney General Miyares decided, in looking at the case, that this particular crime victim, Bijan Geisar, did not deserve his office's attention. And so he just went to the Court of Appeals and voluntarily dismissed the appeal without speaking to the crime victim's family in violation of the Virginia Crime Victim Witness Act, which requires a prosecutor to speak to a victim and or their next of kin before taking any action to affect their case. Because of that, we ended up passing a law, which you all voted for, making it crystal clear that the Attorney General has to honor the rights of crime victims and not just prosecutors. Because we just thought it was really important that our Attorney General understand his obligations. And I think that's part of the point that the Senator from Northern Fairfax makes, is he picks and chooses which victims he cares about. And he could have easily chosen to voluntarily dismiss the appeal of Katie Orndorff and given her justice instead of making her pay tens of thousands of dollars for a lawyer to get her rights from the Supreme Court of Virginia. I'd also just note, I recognize there's been a lot of talk about some text messages and a reckless driving ticket. Our Attorney General has not done a good job. He reversed an opinion by Attorney General Herring about the validity of earned sentence credits and their applicability. Because he decided to change his opinion, our Department of Corrections chose not to release certain people. That was found wrong by a court, and for that pleasure, we had to pay $1.8 million for dozens of people who were wrongfully incarcerated because the Attorney General wanted to play politics with the law instead of calling the law like it is. He decided to appeal the Reggie case. The courts found he was wrong on that. He told the governor he'd keep his tip line records secret. The court found he was wrong on that. He told our hospitals that they couldn't do gender-affirming care. The court found he was wrong on that. He tried to appeal Thomas Jefferson's admissions policies. Courts denied his appeals on that. He made this big, massive probe into Loudoun County, which basically resulted in no convictions after spending a ton of time on it. He prosecuted the Prince William County election registrar, claiming using his new election integrity unit. That went nowhere. I think it got dismissed. He launched a probe into the Fairfax Public Schools National Merit Scholarships thing. Independent law firm found nothing happened. He decided to defend Madam President Pro Tems and my Privileges and Elections Committee members' efforts to reject some of Governor Youngkin's board appointees. A judge found he was wrong on that. I guess we'll find out later this month or next month whether the Supreme Court agrees with the trial judge on that. He was just blocked last week by a U.S. District Court judge over an investigation he tried to do about a Palestinian charity. A tactic, I would point out, by the way, that was used during segregation to investigate the NAACP over massive resistance. But he decided to use that tactic. U.S. District Court judge found, just like it did back in 1950, the First Amendment says you can't go poking around in membership records. And I would just like to point out, just 2 days ago, the Cardinal decided to investigate, Cardinal News, and decided to investigate his claims about earned sentence credits. And they basically found that the records showed that everything he claimed in his press release about people on earned sentence credits committing murders was largely false once they actually went and looked at the data. I think they found that something like out of the 80 people or out of the 78 people he claimed had gone on to commit murder, it was only 13 or something like that. They asked him for comment. He didn't really have much to say about that. But we have an attorney general, folks, who has politicized this office like no AG ever has. He fired like 30 people when he came in. It got rid of their entire civil rights division. And he continues to do it on a daily basis. Just yesterday, he had a chance to file to protect our people that receive SNAP. He could have joined with AGs all around the country to get the federal government to pay SNAP, and he declined. We have people that have lost their jobs and not been paid because federal workers who work in Virginia, because he refuses to stand up to Donald Trump. This attorney general has turned this office into nothing more than a political sideshow for President Trump. And that's what I think voters are going to look at and decide their race on once they've had a chance.